Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be doing a 10-team PPR mock draft from the 7th overall spot using Sleeper. The roster positions for today's mock are going to be 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, 2 flexes, a kicker, defense, and 5 bench spots. But before we could get on into this mock draft, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. So without further ado, let's get into this 10-team PPR mock draft from the 7th overall spot using Sleeper. So the draft begins with Justin Jefferson, Saquon Barkley, Jamar Chase, Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson, and CeeDee Lamb. Now, typically at the 101, you're going to be seeing a different wide receiver, Jamar Chase, selected, but out of the top 6, those are typically going to be the top 6 guys selected, just in a bit of a different order. So at the 107, Sleeper has the highest ranked player as Amon-Ra St. Brown. Now, I truly believe that Amon-Ra St. Brown is basically just a safety blanket wide receiver for your fantasy football roster. They end up losing their offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson, in the offseason. He's now the head coach of the Chicago Bears. But to me, I don't think that's going to change Amon-Ra St. Brown's outlook too much. He is Jared Goff's safety blanket inside of this offense. He is just going to see so much volume game in and game out that I believe that Amon-Ra St. Brown is an incredibly safe first-round pick. Now, I would not prefer drafting him compared to Malik Neighbors or a guy like Christian McCaffrey, Nico Collins, Devon Achane, but that doesn't mean that I think that if you took Amon-Ra St. Brown at the 107, that is just a really insane pick to make. I think that Amon-Ra St. Brown is fine at the 107, but I would look to go elsewhere. Now, Malik Neighbors is currently dealing with an injury. He's working through a back issue. Based on everything that I have seen and read, this is a minor injury. This isn't something to be too worried about. Now, if we fast forward to late August and you're doing your fantasy football draft and hey, Malik Neighbors still isn't back, and hey, Malik Neighbors is still dealing with this back issue, then we do want to start to panic. But based upon how things are looking right now, I would not panic too much at all. And I think that Malik Neighbors is fine to draft at the 107. I would also consider potentially taking Puka Nacua. There is that Matthew Stafford situation as well. How healthy is he? I think we'll get a lot more news today on Monday about that. Christian McCaffrey, to me, I get there is blatant risk. Christian McCaffrey would be a consideration to be picked here as well. Same thing goes with Devon Achane, but we are going to go ahead and take Malik Neighbors. He is my highest ranked player available on the board right now, and I think that Malik Neighbors is going to smash in New York with the Giants this season as long as he is able to stay healthy. I mean, this guy dominated last season with some shitty quarterback play. We saw Russell Wilson throw a deep ball up against the Jets in preseason. So while I don't think Russell Wilson is necessarily the same guy he used to be, he does still have that deep ball, that moon ball that he is just known for. So I expect Malik Neighbors to have a 5-star feast this season. After Malik, we see Puka Nacua, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Derrick Henry, Christian McCaffrey, Devon Achane, and Ashton Genty. Now, I am someone that very strongly believes in a 10-team league, basically every single team in your league is going to be stacked. Why is that? Because even if you aren't the smartest cookie, you are going to be able to draft a great team because there are just less players in your league. And sure, maybe there is that one guy that doesn't know his head from his ass in your league, so maybe 9 out of 10 players have stacked teams, but in a majority of leagues, at least 9 guys are going to have great teams. 9 of the 10 teams are going to be great. So what you want to do to get an advantage over your league mates in a 10-team league is because everyone's going to have that star-studded running back core. Everyone's going to have that star-studded wide receiver core. So you want to have that boost at the onesie positions, the quarterback and the tight end. Now, when I say this, I don't mean you need to force draft a quarterback onto your roster or force draft a tight end when it's too early. Like right now, when Nico Collins and Brian Thomas Jr. are still available, I don't think you have to force Brock Bowers onto your team. I don't think you have to reach up and take Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson just to get that positional advantage. Now, if you wanted to take Brock Bowers here, I'm not going to judge you at all. That guy was phenomenal as a rookie. I think he is going to eat in his second year in the NFL. Now, he did lose all of his hair, or he shaved it all off. He does look a little bit weird. I won't lie, completely bald. He looks like Agent 47, but ultimately, that was a guy that was losing his hair. You could already tell. So he made the smart move, cutting it all off. But to me, I just want to be going best player available. And to me, the best players available are Nico Collins and Brian Thomas Jr. I personally have Nico Collins ranked ahead of bdge. I think there's an argument to be made that both of these guys could easily finish as top 3 or even as the wide receiver 1. Brian Thomas Jr. does get competition in the offense with Travis Hunter, but ultimately Brian Thomas Jr. is still the wide receiver number 1 in this offense now, with Liam Cohen as the head coach. Nico Collins, the clear wide receiver 1, no Tank Dell this season, Stephon Diggs in New England. Nico Collins is a huge deep ball threat, the kind of guy that can win you your week by himself by catching a couple of deep balls, dropping a 30 bomb right in your opponent's mouth. So Nico Collins to me would be the pick. If Nico Collins and bdge weren't available, I probably would have went ahead and took Brock Bowers with this pick if he was the best player available on the board, because to me, in a 10-team league, while I love Drizzy Drake London, I probably would lean with the tight end positional advantage. So we started the draft off with 2 wide receivers. Some people might get nervous because, hey, the running back 1 that might be starting on their team might be slightly worse, but if a running back does fall to us here, we'll be taking advantage of that. After Nico Collins, Josh Allen, Drizzy Drake London, Brock Bowers, Brian Thomas Jr., A.J. Brown, Trey McBride, Josh Jacobs, Lamar Jackson, Jonathan Taylor, Ladd McConkey, Kyron Williams, as well as Bucky Irving. Best players available, according to Sleeper, are going to be Tyreek Hill, Chase Brown, Jackson Smith-Njigba, T. Higgins, Garrett Wilson, and Jaden Stormy Daniels. For me, there is a tier drop-off at the running back position after Chase Brown. Chase Brown is good enough, in my opinion, for me to be taking him over Jonathan Taylor, Kyron Williams. I do have Bucky Irving ranked ahead of him, but I think there's an argument to be made that you might want to take Chase Brown over him. The praise that Chase Brown has gotten from the coaching staff on the team, his offensive coordinator noted that he's going to be the next Austin Eckler, basically giving him the Gawk 9000 special, and if Chase Brown's going to be seeing that many pass catching opportunities, then he has legitimate upside to be the RB1. I understand the Cincinnati Bengals defense is dog shit, and typically when your defense is dog shit, you're not going to be able to run the ball as late on in games, which will be the case in Cincinnati. But if you do have pass catching upside, like a guy like Chase Brown, that's not going to matter too much. It's not going to completely destroy his value. If anything, it might give him a boost of value when they're checking the ball down to him late on in games. After Chase Brown, Tyreek Hill, Garrett Wilson, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Marvin Harrison Jr., T. Higgins, as well as Jaden Daniels. It's actually crazy that we've already gotten past the halfway mark in August and Terry McLaurin still hasn't been signed. Now the team is looking to go ahead and potentially get rid of the running back 1, Brian Robinson Jr. This is a team that, honestly, I thought they were over the dog shit team allegations that they were facing with Schneider as their owner, but honestly, it's looking like the same shit, different day over there in Washington. So we got Chase Brown, Nico Collins, as well as Malik Neighbors on the team. So we talked about that positional advantage at the tight end position. Because again, everyone in a 10-team league is probably going to have great wide receivers. They're probably going to have great running backs, but not everyone's going to have that elite quarterback, that elite tight end. So for me, I think this means you clearly have to take George Kittle with this pick. I have been banging the drum for George Kittle all summer, talking about his ability to potentially finish as the tight end 1 in fantasy football. The 49ers are dealing with a bunch of injuries at the wide receiver position, so at least early on in the year, George Kittle might end up leading the offense in terms of targets. I love slick Ricky Pearsall as a late round pick, and I'm going to continue to talk him up as well, but George Kittle is lethal in this offense, and with Christian McCaffrey healthy, they're going to be able to get more red zone opportunities where George Kittle is able to eat. That is where George Kittle is at his best, inside of the red zone. So I'm a big fan of George Kittle. I love Brock Purdy, so to me, he's kind of a no-brainer here at the 4.4. I would even have considered taking him here at the 3.7. Like, if Chase Brown wasn't available, I would be perfectly fine taking George Kittle with that pick. After Kittle, Breece Hall, James Cook, Joe Burrow, Omarion Hampton, Mike Evans, Jalen, stop, it hurts, Kenneth Walker, Devontae Adams, Alvin Kamara, Chuba Hubbard, Sam Laporta, as well as Terry McLaurin. So we got our RB1, we got our 2 wide receivers, and we got George Kittle. Now, this is the point in the draft where I would say you don't need to force a running back. if you don't love a running back. And what I mean by that is, if you are scared of the age of James Conner, right? If you think he's just going to get hurt like he typically always does, even though he's been a 15-plus point performer for multiple years in a row, people are going to panic. Maybe you don't like James Conner. Maybe you don't want to draft David Montgomery. Maybe you don't want Pacheco. Maybe you don't want Travion Henderson. Just because you don't have your RB2 in round number 5 doesn't mean you need to set off the fire alarm and fucking panic and reach for a guy that you don't like. Now, I like James Conner. I love Travion Henderson. So I am 100% confident in taking one of those running backs here. But if you are not confident in doing so, don't reach just because you don't have your RB2. Same thing can be said about the quarterback position. We talked about how you get that positional advantage with the onesies, the quarterback and the tight end in a 10-team league. It is much more important compared to a 12-team league. But again, you do not need to force it just because you want to get that onesie positional advantage at quarterback when it's Mahomes, Baker, Bo Nix, Jared Goff. I would just much rather wait a little bit longer, see if one falls to me at a discount, then pick them up rather than reaching for one here. I don't think Patrick Mahomes is remotely worth the 5.7. So for me, I would go either running back or wide receiver here. Obviously, we already have George Kittle on the team, so no need to draft a second tight end. At receiver, DK Metcalf, Rashee Rice, DJ Moore, Cortland Sutton, Devontae Smith, Xavier Worthy, Zay Flowers. So looking at the teams around us here, 2 of these teams only have 1 running back. 1 of the teams has 2 running backs. So knowing what I know about the running back position in fantasy football, if these were real people, not a bunch of bots, and even I think the bots are going to do this, they are going to panic. They don't have the running back 2. They are going to draft their RB2. So by the time things swing around, more than likely, at least 2 running backs go, potentially 3 or even 4. So once things come back to us inside the 6th round, we might be stuck with, RJ Harvey, who I don't mind, but I prefer these other running backs much more ahead of him. So we're going to go ahead and take our highest ranked running back. I think the upside pick would be Travion Henderson. More of the safe pick would be with James Conner. Personally, I lean with James Conner over Travion Henderson. Again, I get the guys getting older. I get the I almost called them the Carolina Panthers. I get that the Arizona Cardinals aren't necessarily the most sexy offense in the NFL. You don't think of the Arizona Cardinals and get bricked up thinking about how many points that offense is going to score. But even when the Arizona Cardinals are shitting down their leg, even when the Arizona Cardinals offense is a unmitigated disaster, James Conner is still putting up big numbers. So I feel very confident drafting James Conner inside of the 5th round. After James Conner, DJ Moore, Patrick Mahomes, Cortland Sutton, George Pickens, Devontae Smith, as well as Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice is very interesting right now because I think that we're going to end up getting a resolution to exactly how many games this will be by early September. But a lot of you guys will probably be drafting before that, and there is a chance that it takes even longer than that for them to actually tell us how many games he's going to get. And the fact that he is going to start the first 4 games of the season makes me very nervous because he might come out the gate hot, on fire, NBA Jam style, and then after that, he gets suspended and he misses a bunch of weeks, and then he comes back and he's cold, and it's almost time for the fantasy playoffs, and now you're starting him because he's Rashee Rice, and maybe he's not looking like the Rashee Rice from the first few games of the season, and now you're panicking, now you don't know what to do. Now, again, I'm not saying that if you draft Rashee Rice, you're a straight-up fool, but it does definitely, there are a lot of concerns, especially because we have no idea what the actual suspension length is going to be. My projection would be probably around 6 games at this point. And again, if you start the first 4 games, then you're out for the next 6 games, and then you come back and you start off slow, and the fantasy playoffs are coming up in a few weeks, that's worrisome. That is very worrisome, in my opinion. If you guys have enjoyed today's video thus far, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. And whether you are new to the channel or not, make sure you leave a like on today's video. So again, we're looking either running back or wide receiver at this pick. For me, it's either Travion Henderson or it's going to be DK Metcalf. Kind of pick your poison there, whether you want your first flex to be a running back or a wide receiver. I just think Travion Henderson legitimately has that crazy league-winning upside. Now, he also has much more of a chance to be a bust when you compare him to DK DK Metcalf, right? DK Metcalf is the clear wide receiver 1 on the Pittsburgh Steelers on an offense with Aaron Rodgers, who loves to force feed one guy the ball. Whereas Travion Henderson is in the backfield with Ramondre Stevenson, who, while he did have a strong case of fumbleitis last season, this is a Josh McDaniels offense, and you kind of know Josh McDaniels doesn't want Travion Henderson to be the workhorse, so it's going to be a little bit frustrating, but Travion Henderson has pass-catching upside. To me, he kind of looks like Jahmyr Gibbs, so I'm going to lean with the more upside case of Travion Henderson, but if you want to be a little bit safer, DK Metcalf, a guy like Tet McMillan would have been acceptable as well. After Travion Henderson, DK Metcalf, Isaiah Pacheco, Xavier Worthy, TJ Hawkinson, David Montgomery, Zay Flowers, Tet McMillan, Jamison Williams, DeAndre Swift, RJ Harvey, Chris Olave, as well as Travis Kelce before we make our 7th round pick, as well as the rest of the picks in today's draft. I would like to give you guys a quick word for our friends and our partner over at Underdog. If you're brand new to Underdog and sign up today, using promo code Notorious, you will get your free pick plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash, as well as getting my draft guide emailed to you the next day after you deposit and play through the minimum of $10. If you don't know what Underdog is, it's the best ball platform in the world. You're like, Nick, what's best ball? Best ball is the best part about fantasy football. It's the draft, and that's it. There's no waivers, no trades, no in-season management. Underdog automatically puts the highest scores into your lineup at the end of every single week. Their biggest tournament, Best Ball Mania, $15 million in total prizes, $2 million to first place, $25 to enter. Make sure you guys check that out. Promo code Notorious, or by using the link in the video description. Come draft with me on there. So we're back up on the clock here, and Baker Mayfield is still available at ADP. Bo Nix is still available. None of the teams behind us have a quarterback, so if you wanted to force the quarterback narrative here, probably would be a smart time to do it, because we might not be able to get a Baker or Bo Nix, who would be the guys that we wanted. At wide receiver, Calvin Ridley still available, Jordan Addison, Jerry Jeudy, Jalen Waddle away, Waddle, Travis Hunter. I'm going to be fine, I believe, with the wide receiver that is available at the 8.4. None of these teams ended up taking running backs like I prophesized that they would. So it's very likely at this point that there's going to be a bunch of running backs going. So I think the wide receiver will fall to us. So we will go with Baker Mayfield here. I think it's a coin flip between Baker and Bo Nix. Baker does lose Liam Cohen, but honestly, I don't think that's going to be the thing that ends up completely bending him over a table. I think Baker Mayfield just has a loaded weapons core. Even if Godwin misses the first 4, 5, 6 games of the season, Godwin, Egbuka, Mike Evans, they have Cade Otton. They have a really solid roster. Bucky Irving can catch passes out of the backfield. So I'm very confident in Baker Mayfield this season. I just think he is going to be super duper reliable this season, just like last year. After we went with Baker, Jalen Waddle, Aaron Jones, Mark Andrews, Bo Nix, Joe Mixon, as well as Jerry Jeudy. For me, Calvin Ridley would be the clear pick here. We did take already a rookie with Travion Henderson, who I think is pretty risky, and we're dealing with the potential Malik Neighbors injury, so there is definitely some risk on our roster so far. So I think the move would be, instead of going with Travis Hunter, who's kind of that home run play, shout out to Babe Ruth, Calvin Ridley is much more of the safer option. Calvin Ridley, the clear alpha wide receiver in Tennessee. Not really many guys on that roster that are even in the same stratosphere as him. I understand that if you drafted Calvin Ridley last year, you probably still can't walk straight based upon how hard he fucked you directly in the ass, but I do strongly believe that with Cam Ward under center, without Will Levis, who is just throwing the ball not even remotely near Calvin Ridley, I think this could be the season where Calvin Ridley becomes the guy that I've kind of thought he always was in his career back when he was at Atlanta. Then he goes to Jacksonville, then Tennessee. I was up on Calvin Ridley last season. I gave him the gawk 9,000, metaphorically, of course, and it ended up being wrong, but I do think the decision-making was still correct because he saw so much volume. It was just the quarterback play absolutely sold him up the river. After Calvin Ridley, Jacoby Myers, Jared Goff, Travis Hunter, Kyler Murray, Evan Ingram, Quinshawn Judkins, Jordan Addison Ray, Tony Pollard, Caleb Johnson, Roma Dunze, B-Rob, and Stephon Diggs. Interesting to see what ends up happening with Brian Robinson, considering that they are shopping him. Again, I don't know what the fuck the Commanders are doing. I get is the final year of his contract. Just let him play through it. I don't really get that at all, especially when you're dealing with Terry holding out. This just seems bad. Bad news bears for the Washington Commanders. So we already have 3 running backs on this team. So the smart move would be to just keep drafting high upside wide receivers unless we really wanted Tyrone Tracy. If we had just 2 running backs at this point, I would force Tyrone Tracy onto the team. But since we already have 3, I think taking wide receivers would be the smart move. Now, I haven't taken Deebo Samuel much at all this summer, and Deebo Samuel might be a player that I'm just incredibly wrong on because of the fact that, again, Terry's still holding out. If they get rid of B-Rob, you might be seeing a lot of Deebo Samuel carries inside of the red zone, and then Deebo Samuel could absolutely explode Mount Vesuvius, Krakatoa this season. But there's also the downside of, hey, Deebo Samuel has been quite very much so a failure over the last couple of years. I've been telling people to fade him for years, and I don't think that should magically change this year. But there is still that worry of mine that, hey, if B-Rob gets traded and Terry isn't back, Deebo is the clear wide receiver 1 on the team, and he's going to get fed. Even if he isn't that same guy he used to be, he's going to see a lot of volume. So while I don't love Deebo Samuel, if I'm treating these mock drafts, I do this all the time, as if they are my real home league draft. So while I might not want to draft Deebo Samuel, I do a lot of drafts, right? So I would probably take him on 1 team, right, out of my 10 leagues, for instance. So Deebo would be fine here. I'm kind of off of Cooper Kupp as well, but there's also another scenario where at this pick, I'd be fine doing it with the guys that I already have, even though I don't love him. I probably would pick Ricky Pearsall, just reach on him and get him. And that's actually what we're going to do here. I just feel so much better about that. Now, when we talk about taking 2 players on the same team, right? Some people might say, Nick, it's gross, even though it's round 9, which to me doesn't matter at all at this point. But say you had to take Ricky Pearsall in round 6, right? You already had George Kittle in round 4. For me, the idea of taking 2 players on the same team is very simple. If you think the team's going to be good, it doesn't matter at all. It is perfectly acceptable. If you think the team's going to be bad, that's when you start to worry, right? If you thought that the 49ers were going to be a bottom feeder team, you think the 49ers are going to be complete and utter dick cheese next season, you think the 49ers are going to be getting their back blown out on the weekly, then you probably don't want to draft 2 guys on that team. But since I don't think that. I think the 49ers have an easy schedule. I think they're going to be one of the better teams in the NFL. I am perfectly fine taking Slick Rick with that pick. After Ricky Rolex, Tyrone Tracy, Cooper Kupp, Chris Godwin, Deebo Samuel, Matthew Golden Scar, as well as Tyler Warren. So since we have Baker, since we have George Kittle, we don't have to draft a single other quarterback or tight end for the rest of this draft. And I just think it is a negative move to do so. And why I say that is because you drafted George Kittle, I did, in the 4th round. When are you going to sit George Kittle? I get he's on bye week 14. He'll be on the bench then, right? Or if he gets hurt, knock on wood, we don't root for injuries. But in every other scenario, when are you ever going to start? For instance, say Njoku's not there, and I love Colson Loveland. When are you ever going to start Colson Loveland over George Kittle? If they're both healthy, you are never going to do that. I don't care who the matchup is. If you think George Kittle is going to get locked up Guantanamo Bay style, it doesn't fucking matter. You're probably still going to play George Kittle. Are you ever going to play Kyle Pitts ahead of George Kittle? Fuck no, baby. It's the same thing here with quarterback. I love Brock Purdy. I love Dak Prescott. I love Drizzy Drake May. I love Justin Fields, but I am never going to put them ahead of Baker Mayfield in my lineup. So why do that? And why cause that confusion? Because you're going to get cute. You're going to be like, oh, Baker's playing up against a tough opponent. Let me throw Jordan, love me tender, love me sweet, into my lineup. And then you're going to get pounded because Baker dropped his nuts in the defense's mouth and you thought it was a tough matchup. And then Jordan Love shits the bed and you feel like an idiot. So you just don't want to even be adding that extra confusion to your lineup. Looking at the running backs here, I would be fine scooping up my RB4 with this pick because once we get deeper and deeper and deeper, it just starts to become, there's not very much, in my opinion, start-worthy value for week 1, right? Like if something was to go really wrong, Jordan Mason any given week can just go into my lineup as my flex option, as my RB2. Now, I still think Aaron Jones is the RB1 on the team, but I think it's going to be more of a 55-45 split, 60-40. And with Aaron Jones being just denied inside of the red zone constantly last season, I think Jordan Mason is going to get a lot of opportunities to potentially get in on the goal line for this team and just kind of dolphin dive his way, white boy 7th Street into the end zone. After Jordan, the numbers, Mason, what do they mean? Khalil, Shakira, Travis Etienne, Jalen Warren, the Philadelphia Eagles, Jawan Jennings, David Njoku, Justin Herbert, the pervert, Brock Purdy, I'm a scat man, Cam Scatterbo, Colston, Love, Land, Emeke Egbuka, Jonnu Smith, and we are back up on the board here. Definitely going to go with a wide receiver. I like Jaden Reed. He is dealing with a walking boot. He's not practicing. That just isn't great. Matthew Golden's scar is getting the Suka Lamink special from the coaching staff. So Jaden Reed's kind of fallen down my rankings, in my opinion. I still do think, though, like, let's be honest, even if he's not playing a crazy amount of snaps, like, in the 11th round, if you take Jaden Reed, you could just throw him into your lineup, and sure, he might score 3 fucking fantasy points. I think he's very live any given week to actually put up 0 fantasy points, but he's also live to maybe in a good matchup, dropping 20, 25 plus points, and being the reason why you win your week. Josh Downs also banged up. He's dealing with the hamstring injury. I try not to chase injuries. If they say he's fully healthy, week from now, sure. But right now, I think I probably would take Jaden Higgins ahead of him. Now, Jaden Higgins is more buried down the depth chart of the Houston Texans. He would be behind Nico Collins. He would be behind Christian Kirk, the slot demon. But we already have Nico Collins. Again, it's the 11th round, so I'm fine doing it. But I think we'll just go a different way here. We never really take this guy, so we'll take him instead. We'll go with Keon Coleman. Now, I don't love Keon Coleman, if I'm being blatantly honest with you, but you can talk yourself into, hey, Keon Coleman, raw talent-wise, might be better than Keon Coleman. I mean, Keon Coleman might be raw talent-wise better than Khalil Shakir. Keon Coleman was picked highly in the NFL draft last year. He did look good in college tape, didn't really perform well at all in the NFL. It's definitely an upside chance. Like, there's a chance that this guy's a 0, but I'd like to take that chance because, hey, if 2 weeks in, he's not doing shit, he's buried in the depth chart, Joshua Palmer's getting more targets than him, then you just drop him like it's hot. Again, when you're talking about bench pieces, I think you should be looking for as high upside shots as possible because it's not like Keon Coleman is stuck like glue to your roster for the whole season. After Keon Coleman, J.K. Dobbins, Dalton Kincaid, Dickie Dak Prescott, Kyle Pitts, Javonte Williams, and Tucker Kraft Mac and Cheese. We're to look back towards the running back position here and go with either Jaden, Bonnie Blue, or with Tank Bigsby. We'll go with Tank Bigsby. He is not injured right now like Jaden Blue. Tank Bigsby could be the RB1. He could be the RB2. He legitimately could be the RB3 in Jacksonville. But with Liam Cohen at the helm, if I can get the RB1, then I think you've got a complete and utter steal in the 12th round. And you'll pretty quickly know when the season starts, like, is Tank Bigsby the guy? Is it Etienne? Is it Baishal Tutin? After Tank Bigsby, Zach Charbonnet, Jaden Riley Reed, Jaden Higgins, Josh Downs, Michael Pittman, the Steelers defense, Brandon Ayuk, Ramondre Stevenson, CJ Stroud, the Broncos defense, Dallas Goedert, as well as Brandon Aubrey. So we got our final pick of the draft. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 running backs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wide receivers, perfectly balanced as all things should be. Since this is full PPR, 2 flexes, I would lean more with a wide receiver over a running back here, unless you saw like a blatant value, like someone was just clearly missed, a guy like Braylon Allen. You might really like him. I like him a ton here in this range. Tajay Spears, if he was healthy, I would have already drafted him. Najee Harris, who knows how that shit's going to end up going out there, how that's situation's going to kind of end up ironing out. So I'm going to go wide receiver here. I love Keenan Allen. We've taken Keenan Allen a decent amount late in these drafts, though, so we're not going to go with Keenan Allen. I like Josh Palmer, but we already took Keon Coleman in this draft. Scrolling all the way down, Alec Iomore does look like a potentially decent grab on the Titans, but we already have Calvin Ridley. So that rule of taking 2 guys on the same shitty team, I don't necessarily love. Torrey Horton, I like in best ball. He did look good, but they still have Cooper Kupp. They still have JSN. So if you're in like a redraft league, I don't know how you would ever actually figure out when to play him. So we'll probably just go with the safest bet available. I like Luther Burden a ton as well, talent-wise. And Greg Olsen kind of aired out what the coach said, or what Ryan Poles said about Luther Burden, how he thinks Luther Burden's better than DJ Moore, and he's better than Rome Odunze. So that was just kind of interesting that the fucking announcer would say something like that. I think that's a little bit crazy. So Bird in here would be fine. And I think since we took Keon Coleman, who I just don't like that much, we'll just go back to the well with our Unk, Keenan Allen. I mean, the guy just always fucking manages to produce. He's back on the Chargers. I know last year was feast or famine for him. He was either dominating 50 Shades of Grey style or completely fucking your team over. But I think this year in LA, he'll find more water. He'll be a little bit safer. We're going to go ahead and draft Jake Elliott here as our kicker. And then for our defense, you want to be doing what I call stream defenses. And this isn't just something that I penned, right? I'm not some genius who figured this out. I learned this like 10 years ago. I've been doing it ever since. You stream defense. What I mean by that is you draft the defense based upon who they're playing in week 1, and every other week doesn't matter. Why does the other weeks not matter? Because there's this cool thing called the waiver wire, and you can pick up defenses every single week by looking at who their opponent is. The Rams are my favorite pick this year because the Rams are going up against the Texans week 1 with a dog shit offensive line, and then they go up against the Titans in Tennessee. That could potentially be 2 great matchups. You're going up against a rookie quarterback in Cam Ward in his second ever NFL start in the regular season, and you're going up against an offensive line that is terrible. I know some people might say, Nick, isn't it kind of counterintuitive to draft Nico Collins and then draft the Rams? Maybe you might think so, but I think Nico Collins could still have a big game and even score a touchdown, and the Rams just sack CJ Stroud a bunch, and maybe they cause a fumble, or they get a pick or 2 off of him. I think both of them can both have good games together, so I feel very good about the LA Rams defense. And then in week 2, I make videos every single week on which defenses to stream. There's going to be a video probably next week on my top 5 defenses to draft. Because while I take the Rams every time, there are other defenses, if the Rams got sniped from me, that I would take. So to recap our squad, we're going to have to go ahead and do the electric slide here at the bottom of the screen to get to the left so that you guys can see the full roster. Our team is Malik Neighbors, Nico Collins, Chase Brown, George Kittle Me Timbers, James Conner, Travion Henderson, Baker Mayfield, Calvin Ridley, Slick Ricky Pearsall, Jordan Mason, Keon Coleman, Tank Bigsby, Keenan Allen, Jake Elliott, and the Los Angeles Rams. So let me know what you guys thought about my team down below in the comment section. I absolutely love this team. Thank you guys all so much for watching. If you didn't enjoy, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button down below. Like it owes you some money. Leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want access to my draft guide, check out the Patreon link in the video description. I love you long time. Hope you have a great one, and I'll see you guys later with another banger of a video. As always, guys, good boy.